Hello, I'm Kadar Shahar. I'm a consultant psychologist at Amaha, and I'm here to answer certain questions about destigmatizing mental health support. My family doesn't believe in therapy. They think it's only for people who are broken. How can I explain the importance of seeking professional mental health support without feeling judged or dismissed? Explaining the importance of therapy is especially tricky when family considers it as something that can be used for people who are broken. However, there are certain things we can do in this case. One, you could psychoeducate them about the role and impact of therapy in your life and how it has helped you grow mentally. Second, you could use the analogy of physical sickness. We all experience fever at some point in our life. Do we ask the person with physical illness that sit with your physical illness, don't go to a doctor, and it'll all get better? No. We expect them to actively seek help. It's the same with mental illnesses. Third, we could actually try self disclosure. If you feel comfortable to self disclose about your journey of therapy, that could be very helpful in clearing out people's misconceptions about therapy. We could also create an open dialogue for people to address their misconceptions about therapy. Lastly, we may not be able to actively change people's perceptions when they're firmly rigid. What do we do in this case? We recognize and set expectations that people may have varied ways to look at therapy and accept that fact. But it's important to remember that you did try your best in clarifying their misconceptions about therapy and explaining your journey with it. Creating that open space and dialogue is already a great thing that you're doing. I've been struggling with anxiety for years, but have never told anyone because I don't want to be seen as fragile. How do I overcome this fear of being labeled and start the conversation? It is possible that some people may judge you for your mental health concerns and make it very difficult for you to self disclose. However, there are certain things you can keep in mind before self disclosing. Do I feel comfortable with this person? Have they ever judged me for having any mental health concerns or any other concerns? Do they have the time and space for you to have this conversation with them? Has there been any instance in the past where they have not created an open space for you? And how much do I feel comfortable sharing with them? Once you've introspected on these questions, it may be time to look inward. Are you judging yourself for having mental health concerns in the first place? If you are, it may be time for you to be non judgmental towards yourself. If you are non judgmental towards yourself, self disclosure can become quite easy for you. Sigmund Freud had also once said that out of your vulnerabilities comes your strength. And it's already so courageous and brave of you to share these mental health concerns with people around you. My partner refuses to go to therapy because they think it means they failed at managing their problems. How can I help them see that professional support is a positive step and not something to be ashamed of? There is a lot of stigma associated with mental illnesses. People often label others with mental illnesses as pagal, psycho, crazy, and this could really stigmatize mental health. However, there are certain things you can do to reduce that shame that one may experience. One, you could psychoeducate them about the fact that a psychologist or a therapist is an ethically, clinically practicing individual with a minimum of masters going upwards towards a double masters or a PhD as well. This could help them understand that this is a clinical practice in nature. Second, we could begin by normalizing therapy. Normalize the fact that people go to therapy to have a shoulder to cry on. Normalize the fact that therapy is a process that would give you one person who you may have a secure attachment with that could actually help you develop secure attachments outside of the therapy space as well. Another fact is you could also share experiences of other people around you who may be struggling with mental health concerns, even celebrities for that matter. Understand that taking an empathetic and a supportive stand could help you navigate through convincing someone to seek mental health support. I'm worried that if I tell my friends or family that I'm seeing a therapist, they'll think less of me or assume I'm not strong enough. How do I navigate these fears or still get the help I need? It's completely understandable to have concerns that your friends and family members may judge you and consider you not strong enough for seeking mental health support. This may create a sense of fear and may prohibit you from seeking certain mental health support systems. What do you do in this case? One, remember that people's misconceptions or opinions about therapy could be because of their personal experiences. That doesn't take away from the fact that you are courageous yourself for seeking help. Second, recognize how much, with whom, or what is it that you really want to self disclose about yourself. You could actually set boundaries with people who may view mental health support negatively. That is completely up to you. The agency lies with you. The other thing is, people may have certain misconceptions about therapy because of their own lived experiences. We could also psychoeducate them about your lived experiences that have been positive. Remember that seeking therapy or having any form of mental health support is a courageous step towards self improvement and your growth. I am dealing with a severe mental health condition, and I fear that people around me will treat me differently or assume I'm incapable of handling things at work if they knew. How do I handle this? To begin with, understand that this is your story about your mental health. You can choose how much, to whom, and what it is that you really want to self disclose. That agency lies with you. People may have this perception that you may be incapable at work because of your mental health condition, but remember that that perception could come from their own lived experiences. That does not necessarily have to apply to you. However, there are certain steps we can take to manage this misconception that people may hold. One is you could educate yourself about the disorder or mental health concern you're struggling with, so that you have enough statistical data to support yourself in case you are questioned. Second, sometimes we may internalize others' opinion of ourselves. Sometimes we may feel I may be incapable as well because my manager thinks the same way. That's your point to remember that if we do internalize, we are also stigmatizing mental health concerns. Third, we could also use this opportunity to psychoeducate your manager or other people as well who may believe that you could be incapable of managing things at work just because of your mental health concerns. Fourth, you could actively also focus on your work to better your skills and let your performance speak for itself. These are certain steps you can take to manage things at work if you're struggling with mental health conditions. My community believes that mental health problems should be solved by prayer or willpower. I want to go to therapy, but I feel conflicted about rejecting those deeply held beliefs. How do I navigate this tension? We all hold different beliefs, and it can become difficult to convince someone else of your internal belief systems. That's when we recognize your need for therapy. We recognize that you can hold your spiritual or religious beliefs and at the same time hold your value that you want to seek mental health support. By seeking mental health support, you're not doing injustice to your internal religious beliefs. Remember, you can also educate yourself about the importance and impact of therapy and educate your community about why it is so important to you. Sometimes people may still believe differently from you, and that's completely okay. That could be your segue to set a firm boundary with people around you who may oppose your decision to seek mental health support. There's a lot of stigma attached to taking medication for mental health issues, and I'm scared people will see me differently if they find out I'm considering it. How can I make this decision without letting the fear of judgment affect me? It is completely understandable if you're apprehensive about considering medication for your mental health concerns. We all experience that apprehension. There is one question you need to ask yourself before having to consume medicines. Have you gone to a psychiatrist to be prescribed with any medication for your concerns? If yes, that is also an opportunity for you to ask questions about your medication and its side effects. You could understand that there may not necessarily a sense of dependency that you may be feeling with medicines, that it may not make you sleepy all the time. There could be medicines that could be altered as well according to the way it reacts with your body. You could understand how the medicines are performing slowly throughout a dedicated time period with your psychiatrist. The other thing is, you could also educate yourself about the medicines you're taking and about your mental health condition to understand and keep yourself motivated to prioritize your mental health. The other thing is, it's also important to consider that therapy and medication work hand in hand. Without therapy, it may be difficult to manage your emotions. But without medicines, it may be also quite difficult to engage in the therapy process with your therapist. Remember that usually a psychiatrist prescribes medicines to also help your functionality get better. You may have difficulties or deficits in areas such as your social relationships. You may meet your friends lesser and lesser, or you may have difficulties in your interpersonal relationships, or difficulties at work, elsewhere. Remember that with medicines, you will be actually able to better your functionality. So, even though you may have that fear of judgment with medicines, we could take certain simple measures to deal with that judgment and prioritize our mental health.
People often use OCD as a joke, saying I'm so OCD about little things. But I see how much my sibling struggles with real distressing compulsions. How can I help people around us take their condition seriously? It can be absolutely frustrating to hear people label themselves as OCD just because they are cleaning their hands, right? What do we do in this case? We understand what people with OCD really go through. Let's start by understanding what obsessions means. Obsessions are repetitive and persistent, unwanted and intrusive thoughts that one experiences with a heavy load of anxiety. Very often, this anxiety is so unbearable that we try to neutralize it with compulsions. Now, what are compulsions? Compulsions are repetitive behaviors or actions that one takes to neutralize the obsessive thought. One is often diagnosed with OCD when they have had this experience in a day for more than an hour. Now, imagine someone with OCD perhaps cleaning their hands or doing a compulsive behavior for more than an hour. The impact and the distress of it is so real. We may end up really being very insensitive to someone with OCD if we just blatantly use it in our everyday life. Remember, we could actually take a step forward as an ally and understand what the experiences of people with OCD is. We may find it very easy to judge someone with OCD, but also remember that their experiences can be quite distressing for them. We all need to come together and hold a space for people suffering from OCD and understand that it's our responsibility to create an empathetic environment for them. When my sibling self-harms, family and people around us say it's just attention-seeking behavior. How can I explain to them that this is a serious cry for help and not something to be dismissed? Self-harm, if unattended, could become suicidality. Sometimes we may perceive someone who is self-harming as someone seeking for attention, that they're only doing it for us to focus on them. But self-harm could happen because of so many reasons. Self-harm could happen because someone is depressed, someone is extremely hopeless. They think their existence is unimportant. Self-harm could also happen because you're feeling unloved, inadequate. You feel as if you're really useless and not good for anything. Self-harm could also happen because you're constantly self-doubting. There are so many reasons one could self-harm apart from attention-seeking behavior. It's important to remember to approach this with an empathetic outlook. Someone could self harm because they are voicing a cry for help. They may be in a situation where they are not being heard, and the only way they could possibly be heard is through self harming. Why would really someone inflict pain onto them? Imagine the kind of environment that they may be in that is so distressing that they may have to really scream or they may have to actually self harm to get their voice be heard. Imagine how distressing that environment or their own internal system would be to be in that space. What do we do to manage this self harm tendency? You try to get them the help that they need. You try to hold space. But if you invalidate someone's experience of self harm, it could actually nudge them towards harming themselves even more. I know mental health is completely stigmatized, and it can be very difficult to move out of the box of biases that we all hold, right? But it's important to understand that mental health is something that is extremely important for us. And I'm hoping that you've been able to destigmatize some beliefs that you hold closely about mental health support.